We just finished installing the Horsepower Freak Stage 2 turbo system in this car, and we're going to do some dyno pulls with it. And before I did that, I want to talk to John, our service manager, about how the Horsepower Freaks AEM engine management system works. So John, I get a lot of questions of people saying, is it a standalone or is it a piggyback?
It depends on your definition of standalone or piggyback. Our definition of standalone is a system that completely controls the engine on its own, which is what it does. However, we retain the factory DME, which is down there, as you can see, right there. We retain that because it still controls the throttle bodies and the idle air control motor. We didn't want to pull any of that out of there because we want to retain the ability for the customer to return their car back to stock, so we don't hack up any wiring or anything like that. What you'll notice is this harness right here. This controls the coils. You'll notice that it is no longer plugged into the DME at the bottom. This is our I wouldn't know what to call it, but our intercept box, so to speak. It intercepts all the signals and does what we want with it.
So it looks like these are coming from the engine management system over there. That's those plugins that we're seeing. Those wires come in here into the black box, correct?
Yeah, the wires from the engine management system actually come in right here. And for example, like our injectors, to control the injectors, the wiring just comes in through the EMS, through this harness, it loops out of this box into the engine harness right here to the engine. It has nothing to do with the DME at all.
Okay. So our engine management system is controlling the spark plugs and the fuel injectors, and the factory DME has no control over any of that. Is that correct?
None at all. If you per se were to hook up the PT tool to one of our cars and try to do some testing with injectors and things like that, none of it would work. None of it works.
Okay. And then I also get questions about the O2 sensors, the factory ones.
We have to retain the O2 sensors because without them, if we were to unplug an O2 sensor, the DME goes into what some would call safe mode. And since the DME controls the throttle, it gives us zero throttle. That's why we retain the O2 sensors. Now there is a way to get rid of that, but that would require flashing the DME and things like that. Stuff that we don't want to do because we want to retain the stockness of the car.
Right, and I notice when I drive these that they just drive like they're stock. Is that partly because the factory computer is controlling the idle air and the drive-by-wire?
Yeah, that's part of it. The factory systems still control SMG in SMG cars. They control the throttles and they control the idle air control motor.
Okay, so also does that, I would assume that would allow the factory stability control to still work?
Yes, all the systems in the car still work.
Okay, so now the service engine soon light comes on in these cars. Now, is that because the factory DME doesn't see what the engine is doing, or does it see what the engine's doing?
It does see what the engine's doing to a certain extent. It throws the service engine soon light because all of the parameters are out of range. Like for instance, your Vanos degree, there's a certain range that has to fall in. If you go so many degrees retarded or so many degrees advanced past what it's supposed to be, it'll throw a light telling you that there's something wrong. And since the car went from a naturally aspirated engine to a turbocharged engine, the way that the cams are degreed, depending on RPM, are all different.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Can you show me the engine management, the tuning part that you guys use?
This is the AEM engine management software. Anybody can download this software from AEM.com, but don't get the idea that you can control our cars with it, because you can't. But
why is that?
We have proprietary software that allows us, and only us, to connect to these computers.
Okay.
But anybody can download this software if anybody wants to look to see what it does. It controls absolutely every aspect. You'll see right here rev limiters. That's one thing that we can't control, especially the upper rev limiter, because the E46 M3 actually shuts the throttle off, and that's controlled by the DME.
Okay, but we can set our own rev limiters.
Yeah, we can do anti-lag, we can do launch control, we can do all of it in here. And using some of those profiles is how our master tuner JP has done traction control and some of the cool stuff that we do.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna dyno this. I want to go through some gears so that we can show everybody the power it makes in the different gears. So thanks for showing us that, John. Okay, John, why don't we do the third gear pull first, now the car's all warmed up. Okay, made 584 to the wheels, which in third gear is what we'd expect. Okay, John, you ready to do fourth gear? Fourth gear made 620. Third gear made 584. Fourth made 620. It's SAE correct. All right, John, you ready to do fifth gear? Looks like fifth gear made 616. We're going to do a sixth gear pull here. And hey John, on this sixth gear pull, we're going to need to not go past 185 here on the speedo, because our dyno is going to think it's over 200 and it's going to not record the results. So let's just take it to 7,000 RPM. And then we'll compare the dyno graph using engine speed as opposed to wheel speed. Never do a sixth gear pull normally starting at 2,000 or 1,500 RPM to 8,000, which is ridiculous. It's going to generate a bit of heat, but for testing, it's a good test. We'll do it, and put the details in the back. This last one is actually the one we just did in sixth gear, and You can see how it looks like it's way down on power here at 570. So let's go to compare it with, instead of speed, let's compare it on engine speed. Okay, here are the dyno results for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And what you can see, we renamed them here. You can see the times, they were all done one after the other. And what you'll notice is that 3rd gear made far less power, and because there wasn't enough load to get the turbo hot and get it spooled up. But here with 4th gear, you'll see 4th is in red. It made 618. 5th made 616. Now 6th we didn't take it to red line because our dyno was shut off, but you'll notice that it started making less power here. Now originally I thought that was because intake air temps. And John, can you show us the log file? Just show us the intake air temps.
Here's just the intake air temp and the RPM. So as you can see right here, right about 3,000 RPM where methanol comes on, the air temp starts to drop considerably.
So so right there, let's go to graph.
At the bottom, at the
right
very
there,
bottom.
we're at what temperature?
59.
And now why is that so low?
Methanol cools intake air temps quite a bit.
So during this pull, the intake air charge temperature actually goes down.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we saw this about 15 minutes ago when we were discussing why we were seeing a drop-off here when intake air temps were actually going down. And JP figured it out. And it's actually due to friction in the differential and friction in the dyno. When we're spinning the differential at 180, 190 miles an hour, it creates a much greater load on the car, horsepower drag, as well as the dyno itself. And so the other thing to consider is that in 5th gear and 6th gear, if you're on the street, you're probably going to see actually an increase in power even over these numbers, because when we've been doing our dyno, we're using these 3 wimpy fans that probably are flowing maybe 30 miles an hour of air. And when you have 180, 190, 200 miles an hour of air going across the intercooler, the drop in intake air temps is going to be even more significant. So this was an interesting test. Is there anything else you want to elaborate on, John?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything.
Okay. Hey, thanks for doing this.
No problem.